Hi, Terry here again. I've been wondering about, I guess, kind of a strange question, but I've been pondering, toying with the question, who is this I keep talking about? Been reading through some of my journal notes and I did this, or I've been wondering about that, or I dreamed this, or I plan on doing that. I keep talking about this I. Who is this I? There was a time I thought kind of a silly question, but in another sense, it feels kind of important that I would understand who this I is. One option, I suppose, is that I is made up of combination of voices from my past. Highly influential voices that, I is partially my mother's voice, my father's voice, the voice of hundreds, perhaps thousands of hours of preaching in churches, combination of theology that I learned, or people telling me over and over again about my original sin instead of original blessing, or the voices of where I grew up in Michigan. There were a number of farms around me, friends that needed migrant workers. And the way they derogatorily talked about them, the horrible names they had for their migrant workers, and the really nasty living conditions when they were living on their farms and so on. Is I partially made up of that? Is this I more than voices from the past? Or another picture is from the Hebrew scriptures very early on in Genesis, that spirit was breathed into us, or divinity was breathed into humanity. Is this I that I keep talking about or thinking through, let's say, is this I divine somehow? Who is this I? When I read through my journal, as I mentioned before, I'm planning, I'm thinking, I did this yesterday. And a similar question is, who is this we I talk about, or I have talked about when I was in working in different churches? We believe, or we had creeds that says we believe. Who is this we? Now I can define myself by saying, okay, I am Reverend Doctor, or I'm a retired pastor, or I write, I I have a business, formed a business, or an initiative called Half-Essence and Beyond. So I can define how I am engaged. But I wonder if you've thought about that. Who is this I? And how do I get to know this I? Sound like I'm talking in circles or weird stuff. And part of it for me just says, oh, this is just play. The other part of me says, at this stage in my life, this stage of development or faith development, it's a reasonable question. I have space. I have this independent observer that's emerged from my being somehow, that I have an increased capacity to have a perspective of wondering about this I, which means somehow getting outside of myself somehow. But I wonder if the only way I know to do that is to engage in the practice of, some people call it contemplative prayer, traditions call it meditation, silence, just sitting and trying to have the I not so active, just sitting and being, sitting and hardly even noticing, just being. And I wonder if you've had some wondering about this I or this we. What are the biases, or what do we see? What are the lenses that I look through? Or how much divinity, how much all, how much, or Jung calls it a collective unconscious, or I've someone taught me a while back that somehow stuck, that 90% of what I am engaged in is underneath a membrane that called the unconscious. I'm not even aware of it. So I wonder if you've toyed with that, or if it's a curiosity for you, or it just sounds silly. I'd be interested in maybe a comment or two, or just saying, hey, I wonder about this I also, or I wonder about this we, or Terry, I think you're just off in la la land. I'd be curious about that. Or what you've maybe pondered yourself and discovered about this I or this we. So I'll just leave it at that. I don't know where to go from that, but it's something that's intriguing me, and I wondered if it was ever intriguing to you as well. Talk to you next time, perhaps a little more practically.